Hello, my name is Mo Weinhardt, and I'm a Dharma teacher in Empty Moon Zen. Today, I'd like to explore the question, where is the field of our practice? A fellow Zen practitioner once confided in me, I haven't practiced at all this week, and I was initially confused. When I asked what they meant, it became clear that they were feeling guilty because they hadn't meditated. Sometimes there's a misconception that the practice of Zen only takes place on the cushion, that enlightenment strikes like lightning while sitting zazen, or that the heart of Zen practice is in a sitting group, a zendo, or on sesshin. To me, this is a dangerous misunderstanding. While it's true that awakening can and does take place while sitting in meditation, perhaps while on retreat, in truth, such circumstances are a small fraction of most people's practice here in the West. Sitting zazen in relative quiet and with a community is a precious form of practice. This form of practice supports us with the most generous conditions. Cultivating presence and awareness while sitting in silence, perhaps with other people who are engaged in the same activity, is in a way similar to going to the gym. And as strange as that may seem, bear with me. When you go to a gym, you surround and immerse yourself in an environment that is entirely designed for the purpose of working out. It's a dedicated space that is stocked with the right tools for the job. Knowledgeable folks are available to answer questions. There are towels and water available to deal with the sweat, and other people who you may or may not know show up to do the same kind of thing. Ideally, if you're going to a good gym, everything about the place is designed and managed to support you in working out, pushing yourself, and getting more physically fit. And while the tools of Zen practice are more likely to include cushions called zafus and mats called zabatons, as opposed to barbells and ellipticals, there's a clear parallel here. Sitting zazen in community is intentionally designed to limit our distractions and to encourage or at least invite the mind to confront itself fully, moment by moment, breath by breath. It's designed to make the practice of awareness easier to engage, cultivating our ability to return again and again and again to just this. Now, this is in no way meant to indicate that Zazen is easy. Just this can be a tough cookie to swallow, even within a supportive community that's designed to make it more accessible. It can be painfully difficult, even excruciating, to stay present and awake to oneself. In a strange parallel with how people avoid working out because it hurts, Zazen, even when surrounded by incredible tools and supportive people, will regularly test folks to their limits. It certainly tests me. So, where is the field of our practice? Being awake to our breath, our bodies, our vacillating, fickle thoughts and emotions, this shit is difficult. Zazen is an opportunity to come face to face with ourselves, whatever that means, often noticing the three poisons of greed, anger, and ignorance. Also translated as attachment, aversion, and delusion. In Buddhism, these three poisons are thought to be the unwholesome roots from which all unskillful and harmful actions spring. They are mental states that cloud the mind. They are the source of dukkha, which is often translated as suffering or unsatisfactoriness. This is the core of the human experience that Siddhartha Gautama, the historical Buddha, taught through the Four Noble Truths. And he illuminated the way out of this suffering through the Eightfold Path. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. I'm all about the Eightfold Path, but that's not what this talk is about. The Eightfold Path leads us out of dukkha, out of suffering. But we can't put the cart before the horse. Before we can work on finding a way out, we first need to see more clearly where we are. We first need to become intimate with the ways that unsatisfactoriness arises, to become intimate with our unique expressions of the three poisons: attachment, aversion, and delusion. And to be honest, I usually don't want to. I also usually don't want to work out. Sitting zazen puts the habitual workings of my mind on full display, in a shining spotlight that I'd often rather avoid. And these parts of myself, my extraordinarily human self, can be hard to face, let alone embrace. I remember once, many years ago, while on a 5-day retreat early in my Zen practice, we were walking around the zendo in Kinin, or walking meditation. And if you've never done Kinin on a retreat before, let me briefly describe what this looked like. At this retreat, after long periods of sitting meditation, or zazen, everyone stood in a single file line and walked extremely slowly, one foot in front of the other, around the zendo. Since many of us were dealing with pins and needles after our legs had fallen asleep from sitting, walking at this ridiculously slow pace was actually a gift. It also invited deep awareness of body, of balance, and of moving together. In this particular community, we were encouraged to follow in each other's footsteps so the entire community might move as one. After a few minutes of moving quite slowly, the clappers clapped, we all bowed, and then we picked up the pace, weaving around cushions in a long snake-like line through the zendo. I loved Kinin, and loved the experience of moving as one, paying close attention to the person in front of me so I could lift my foot when they did, shift my balance in sync with theirs, and then step in their own footprint. It was a wonderful challenge. In fact, as a young teenager, I had attended a 6-week military academy every summer for 3 years and had a lot of experience marching in sync with others. I took great pride in this and found it absurdly gratifying when everyone in the Kinin line was synchronized. There was just something beautiful about it, something I was a small part of, and that was also much larger and more lovely than myself, like seeing a flock of birds or a school of fish change direction and move in unison. In this retreat, there were 1 or 2 people a few spots in front of me in line who seemed blissfully or intentionally unaware of what was going on. They practically never walked in line with those in front of them. They made all sorts of mistakes that I found incredibly frustrating and paid no attention to how their movements disrupted the Kinin line behind them. It drove me absolutely bananas. It felt like there was a beautiful symphony being played, along with 1 or 2 careless people who were playing cheap, plastic, cringe-worthy recorders. Wow, was I judgmental and self-superior about this. I had opinions. And I also felt like a jerk. So much about the rising and falling tides of my mind came out into the light here. In this case, I noticed my surprisingly intense attachment to doing Kinin right and feeling special because this was something I thought I was particularly good at. Along with my attachments to feeling special and to my own definition of doing it right, came my attachment's partner in crime, aversion. In this case, my deep aversion to making mistakes. It's only in retrospect that I saw how these 2 poisons always seem to dance together. During a different retreat, I was so excited. For the very first time, I was invited to be one of 4 servers, people who serve everyone their food during meal times and who serve the Roshi's tea during afternoon tea in the Zendo. It required incredible attention to do this without stepping on someone or dropping something. And while I had a lot to learn, I was proud of how well it was going for my first time. Proud, that is, until I spilled boiling hot tea on one of the Roshi's hands. They grimaced, pulled away, took it like a champ, and all I could do was fumble with the towel and try to clean up everything while remaining silent. I was mortified. I was upset that I had carelessly hurt someone, one of my teachers no less, and I felt like a prize idiot. I was sure that they were angry, that they somehow thought less of me, and that I would never be invited to be a server again. It immediately reinforced stories that I was struggling with at the time about not being good enough. I was so ashamed that I refused to go to Dokusan the rest of the day, just to avoid a one-on-one meeting with the teacher I had burned. This was a shining example of my aversion, avoiding a person and a situation that made me uncomfortable. And along with this aversion to shame and discomfort came the inevitable partner in crime, attachment. Attachment to the idea that I should never make a mistake, and attachment to a well-worn story that I was somehow not good enough, as if spilling hot tea on someone was definitive proof that I sucked at being a human being. And this push-pull relationship of these 2 poisons is remarkable, and I came to realize that one cannot arise without the other. And leading the way is the third delusion, or the third poison of delusion. Delusion implies an inability to distinguish between what is real and what only seems to be real. In Zen, this is the delusion of separation, that I am somehow separate from all that is. This delusion of separation leads to destructive states of mind or behavior, leading us down the primrose path to Tana, a Pali word that means craving or thirst. A craving for things, the world, the situation, or myself to somehow be other than they are, ignorant of the intimate connection we share with all that is, our intimate connection with just this. I want to point out that these examples of the 3 poisons arising in my life are in the context of participating in immersive retreats, where I was held by a container of mostly silence, 10 plus hours of meditation a day, dharma talks, chanting liturgy, all while in a temple, surrounded by peers and supportive teachers who were engaged in the same activities. Returning to my earlier fitness analogy for just a moment, working out is hard enough when I go to the gym. Imagine trying to survive, let alone thrive, in the wilderness without having first cultivated some level of strength and resilience through working out and practicing physical fitness. And Zen practice. Practice is hard enough on the cushion or on retreat. What about practicing amidst the chaos, confusion, distractions, temptations, the physical and emotional noise of our everyday lives? Perhaps this is why Hakuin Ekaku, a Zen master from the 18th century, said that practice in the midst of activity is 1,000 times superior to practice in stillness. How do we practice when we're in the throes of shame or embarrassment for making a mistake at work? When we haven't gotten any sleep and our kids won't stop crying or fighting? When a friend says something hurtful? When we're overcome after losing someone we love? When someone says something deeply offensive or just loosely rude? When we're hot with rage at the deceitful behavior of those in power? When we're fearful about not having enough money When we notice a stranger down on their luck asking for help, how do we practice open-heartedness in the face of tanha, or this craving for things to be otherwise? It is much harder to see the three poisons at play with any degree of clarity under these circumstances. It is much harder to pause, take a breath, and respond with some level of intention or clarity in these situations, as opposed to just reacting. And this is the field of our practice. This hot, tangled, beautiful mess. And this is exactly why I need Zazen. The cushion provides a safe place to encounter ourselves as genuinely, honestly, and open-heartedly as possible. And this is necessary so I can carry this practice out into the world, into the stuff of our lives, encountering just this, whatever this might be, and realizing that we are not separate. Thank you.